In the rugged lands of Illyria, a powerful new ruler emerged around 231 BC. Her name was Teuta, a queen known for her fierce ambition and iron will. She was not born to rule, but became regent for her young stepson, Teuta. Teuta inherited the Audacian kingdom from her late husband, King Agron. Agron himself had been a formidable leader, expanding Illyrian power significantly. He had built a strong army and a fearsome navy. Teuta, however, would take his expansionist policies to a new level. She saw the Adriatic Sea not as a boundary, but as a vast field for plunder. The queen actively encouraged the age-old Illyrian practice of piracy. Under her patronage, Illyrian fleets became the terror of the seas. Their ships, known as lembi, were fast and agile. These vessels were perfectly designed for raiding and surprise attacks. They swarmed out from hidden coves along the jagged Illyrian coastline. No merchant vessel sailing the Adriatic or Ionian waters felt safe. The pirates targeted ships laden with grain, wine, and valuable goods. They showed little mercy to the crews of the ships they captured. The economic lifeblood of the region was threatened by their constant attacks. Greek city-states, long accustomed to maritime trade, suffered greatly. Italian traders, who were increasingly active in the area, also fell victim to the raids. Teuta's ambitions were not limited to piracy alone. She launched military campaigns to expand her kingdom's territory. One of her most audacious moves was the capture of the city of Phoenice in Epirus. Phoenice was one of the wealthiest and most powerful cities in the region. Its fall sent shockwaves throughout the Hellenistic world. The Illyrian forces took the city by surprise, overwhelming its defenses. They plundered its riches and took thousands of its citizens as slaves. This act demonstrated the growing strength and audacity of Teuta's kingdom. The Epirotes were forced to seek an alliance with the Aetolian and Achaean leagues for protection. The Illyrian threat had become too great for any single state to handle alone. Meanwhile, the Roman Republic watched these events with growing concern. Rome's influence and trade interests in the Adriatic were expanding. The Illyrian pirates posed a direct threat to Roman citizens and their economic activities. The Senate could not ignore the escalating chaos on its eastern maritime frontier. They decided that diplomatic intervention was necessary. In 230 BC, Rome dispatched 2 ambassadors to Queen Teuta's court. The envoys were the brothers, Lucius and Gaius Coruncanius. Their mission was to demand an end to the Illyrian attacks on Roman shipping. They arrived at Teuta's royal court, likely a fortified hilltop residence. The Roman envoys presented their case with typical Roman gravity. They spoke of international law and the rights of free trade. Queen Teuta listened to their demands with unconcealed disdain. She was flushed with her recent military successes and felt invincible. In a now famous reply, she declared that Illyrian custom did not permit rulers to interfere with their subjects' private enterprises at sea. This was a thinly veiled justification for state-sponsored piracy. She essentially told the Romans that her people's piracy was none of her business, nor was it theirs. The Roman envoys were taken aback by her arrogance. One of them, Lucius, was particularly incensed by her response. He retorted that Rome had an excellent custom of punishing those who committed private wrongs and of helping the wronged. He bluntly told her that, with the gods' will, they would soon force her to mend her royal customs. This sharp, undiplomatic reply sealed his fate. Teuta was enraged by the envoy's insolence. She viewed his words as a direct and unforgivable insult to her authority. The diplomatic meeting ended in anger and mutual distrust. As the Coruncanius brothers began their journey back to Rome, tragedy struck. On the orders of the queen, assassins ambushed their vessel. Lucius Coruncanius, the envoy who had spoken so frankly, was murdered. His brother Gaius managed to escape the attack. The murder of an ambassador was a grave violation of sacred international norms. It was an act of war in all but name. When news of the assassination reached Rome, the Senate was outraged. The people of Rome clamored for vengeance. The murder of their envoy was an affront to the Republic's honor that could not be ignored. Preparations for war began immediately and with great urgency. In 229 BC, the Roman Republic officially declared war on Queen Teuta and the Ardeanian kingdom. This conflict would become known as the First Illyrian War. Rome assembled one of the largest military forces it had ever put to sea. A fleet of 200 warships was prepared for the invasion. This massive armada was a clear statement of Roman intent. Two consuls, Gnaeus Fulvius Centumalus and Lucius Postumius Albinus, were given command. An army of over 20,000 soldiers was also levied to support the naval operations. The Roman war machine, tested in the Punic Wars, was now directed eastward. As the Roman fleet sailed across the Adriatic, they found an unexpected ally. Demetrius of Pharos was one of Teutas' most trusted generals. He had been placed in command of the important island of Corcyra. Seeing the overwhelming power of the approaching Roman force, Demetrius decided to switch his allegiance. He calculated that his future was more secure with the Romans than with the defiant queen. He secretly negotiated with the Roman consul Fulvius. Demetrius surrendered Corcyra to the Romans without a fight. In return for his betrayal, he was promised a position of power in Illyria, under Roman protection, then became a valuable advisor to the Roman commanders, guiding them through the complexities of Illyrian politics and geography. The loss of Corcyra was a major strategic blow to Teuta. The Roman fleet now had a secure base from which to launch its operations. From Corcyra, the Romans moved swiftly up the Illyrian coast. They relieved the Greek city of Epidamnus, which was under siege by Teutas' forces. The Illyrian besiegers fled at the sight of the Roman legions. Next, the Romans sailed to Apollonia, another city threatened by the Illyrians. They were welcomed as liberators by the grateful Greek inhabitants. The Roman army under Postumius marched inland, subjugating Illyrian tribes along the way. The Illyrian fleet, which had seemed so formidable, was no match for the Roman navy. In a series of naval battles, the Illyrian lembi were outmaneuvered and destroyed. Teuta's naval power, the foundation of her kingdom's strength, was systematically dismantled. The queen's forces were in disarray, defeated on both land and sea. She was forced to abandon her southern strongholds. Teuta retreated northward to her most secure fortress, Aizon Totium. Aizon was located in a well-protected bay, a natural stronghold. From there, she watched as her kingdom crumbled around her. The swift and brutal effectiveness of the Roman military campaign was undeniable. By early 228 BC, Teuta's position had become hopeless. She was isolated and her armies were scattered. Realizing that further resistance was futile, she sent envoys to the Romans to sue for peace. The Romans, having achieved their primary objectives, agreed to negotiate. The terms of the peace treaty were severe and designed to cripple Illyrian power permanently. Teuta was forced to agree to pay a substantial annual tribute to Rome. She had to renounce her claims to vast territories she had conquered. Her kingdom was reduced to a small, contained area around her capital, Rhizon. The most significant clause of the treaty directly addressed the issue of piracy. Illyrian warships were forbidden from sailing south of the city of Lissus. No more than 2 unarmed Illyrian ships were allowed to travel together in this restricted zone. This provision effectively ended the threat of large-scale Illyrian piracy in the Adriatic. The treaty marked the end of Teutas' reign as a major power in the region. She was allowed to continue as regent, but her authority was a shadow of what it once was. Soon after, she disappears from the historical record entirely. Her ultimate fate remains unknown to history. The First Illyrian War was a pivotal moment for the Roman Republic. It was Rome's first military campaign across the Adriatic Sea. This intervention established a Roman protectorate over the Greek cities on the Illyrian coast. It also set a precedent for future Roman involvement in the affairs of the Hellenistic kingdoms to the east. Rome's victory over Teuta was a clear signal of its rising dominance. The old powers of the Mediterranean would have to reckon with this ambitious and powerful republic. As for Demetrius of Pharos, his story continued. The Romans installed him as the ruler of a client state in Illyria. However, his ambition would eventually lead him to betray his Roman patrons as well. He revived Illyrian piracy and challenged Roman authority a decade later. This led to the Second Illyrian War and his own eventual downfall. Queen Teuta's legacy is that of a bold but ultimately tragic figure. He was a ruler who dared to defy the might of Rome. Her story highlights the brutal realities of power politics in the ancient world. She overestimated her own strength and underestimated the resolve of the Roman Republic. Her defiance, while courageous, brought ruin upon her kingdom. Yet, she remains a symbol of resistance in the history of the Illyrian people. Her name is remembered long after the consuls who defeated her have faded into obscurity. The tale of the Pirate Queen serves as a dramatic chapter in Rome's relentless march to empire. It demonstrates how a single act of defiance, the murder of an envoy, could unleash the full force of a superpower. The Adriatic Sea was now firmly under Roman control. The trade routes were secure once more. And the legend of Queen Teuta, the Illyrian ruler who challenged Rome, was born. Her kingdom was shattered, but her story endured. The echoes of her defiance would resonate through the annals of history. She was a queen who ruled with audacity. She commanded pirates with impunity. She challenged an empire without fear. She lost her kingdom with dignity. Her reign was short but incredibly eventful. The consequences of her actions reshaped the political landscape of the Adriatic. Rome's first step into the Greek world was taken on the shores of her kingdom. The war she provoked was a sign of things to come. The Hellenistic world was now on Rome's horizon. Teutas' pirates had inadvertently drawn the wolf across the sea. The queen's gamble had failed spectacularly. Her power was broken, her fleet sunk. The tribute she paid was a symbol of her submission. The restrictions on her ships were a constant reminder of her defeat. The name Teuta became a cautionary tale. It spoke of the dangers of hubris. It warned against provoking the wrath of Rome. Her story was told and retold by historians. Polybius, the Greek historian, chronicled her rise and fall. He painted a picture of a rash and arrogant ruler, but he also acknowledged her strength and determination. She was a woman ruling in a world of men. She commanded armies and navies. She carved out an empire, however briefly. Her legacy is complex and multifaceted. Was she a freedom fighter or a ruthless pirate? Was she a visionary leader or a reckless gambler? Perhaps she was all of these things at once. Her kingdom is long gone, lost to the mists of time. The Illyrian people have scattered and assimilated. But the story of their queen lives on. It is a story of power, piracy, and defiance. It is a story of a queen against a republic. It is the story of Teuta, of Illyria. The year 231 BC marked the beginning of her ascent. The year 228 BC marked its dramatic end. Just a few short years, she had changed the course of history. She had brought the might of Rome crashing down upon her shores. The world would never be the same again. The Adriatic had become a Roman lake, and the memory of the pirate queen became legend.